My name is Beeksley. I'm 29 years old, and the morning before my wedding, I was sitting at my mother's house. Curlers in my hair, mascara half done when my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Not a call, not a conversation. Just a message that said if his new wife's grandkids weren't on my guest list, don't bother calling him my father anymore, that we were done. 6 hours later, 7 people I loved would pile on with texts of their own, and none of them would show up the next day. If you truly love and appreciate your parents, take just 1 second to subscribe to this channel. It means a lot to us. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? My fiancé Daniel had been patient, kind, everything my father never modeled for me. Tomorrow was supposed to be the most beautiful day of my life. Then that text arrived at 7:43 in the morning. I read it 4 times. My hands weren't even shaking. I think I was too stunned for that. The kids in question were my dad's new wife's ex-husband's children, 4 kids I'd met exactly twice at a summer barbecue. Nothing against them, but our wedding had a 60-person cap at a small venue, and Daniel and I had built that guest list together, carefully, within budget. We hadn't even invited half of Daniel's own cousins. It wasn't personal. It was logistics, and I'd explained exactly that to my father 3 weeks earlier, calmly, respectfully, even offering to host a separate dinner after the honeymoon, so his new blended family could celebrate too. He'd nodded, said he understood, said he was proud of me. That was the last real conversation we had because the morning before my wedding, he chose a text message over his own daughter. I set the phone face down, finished my mascara, and told myself I'd deal with it after the honeymoon. I didn't want to ruin my makeup twice. What I didn't expect was what happened over the following 6 hours. First, my brother Theo saying I couldn't have added 4 kids to the list, that dad was devastated. Then my mother, divorced from my father for 11 years by that point, telling me I was being selfish, that family comes first. Then my Aunt Carol, then my Aunt Diane, then the aunt I'd always been closest to, sending a 3-minute voice note wrapped entirely in disappointment and scripture. 6 hours before my rehearsal dinner, I was standing trial in a family court I never agreed to appear in. I remember sitting alone on cold bathroom tile, phone full of messages I never asked for, and I made a decision right there. I was not going to collapse. I was not going to call and beg. I was not going to shrink myself the night before one of the most important days of my life to make people comfortable who had never once asked if I was comfortable. I walked out, sat down at the rehearsal dinner, held Daniel's hand, and smiled until the smiling became real. We got married the next day. Small, honest, ours. My dad wasn't there. Neither were my brother, my mother, or my 3 aunts. 7 people I loved chose man's ego over my wedding day, and not a single one of them called to apologize the morning after. I spent the first year of my marriage learning what real peace feels like once you stop chasing people who only reach for you when it's convenient for them. I thought that chapter was closed. 2 years later, my father would call again, and not for the reason I expected. 2 full years of silence. No birthday texts, no holiday call, nothing from the man who used to drive me to school every morning and call me his best girl. I'd grieved it properly by then, cried in therapy, written letters I never sent, and arrived at something close to acceptance. He'd made his choice. I'd made mine. My quiet, genuinely happy life with Daniel kept growing without him in it. Then one Tuesday in March, an unknown number called. It was him. His voice sounded smaller somehow. He skipped any apology, which didn't surprise me, and went straight to why he was calling. He and his wife were restructuring a property tied to a family trust my grandfather had set up years earlier, and he needed my signature to release his portion so he could move forward with retirement. Without it, the whole arrangement was frozen. His financial advisor had apparently been trying to reach me through Theo for weeks, but since Theo and I were also estranged, the message never made it to me. My father hadn't reached out to reconcile. He needed one signature, and his retirement depended on it. I told him I'd think about it and hung up. I sat with that call for 3 days. Daniel never pressured me either way. My therapist reminded me that not signing was just as valid a choice as signing, and neither one required me to pretend the last 2 years hadn't happened. On the 4th day, he called again, and this time left a 2-minute voicemail. He said he knew things had gone wrong between us. Said he wasn't calling to fight. Said he hoped I was doing well. Then, almost as an afterthought, he said I should have handled things differently. 7 words. Not an apology, not real accountability, but something. I called him back that evening. I didn't pretend everything was fine, didn't comfort him, or make it easy. I told him plainly and calmly exactly how that morning had felt. The texts, the rehearsal, dinner, the silence that followed for 2 years. I told him his absence on my wedding day wasn't something I'd minimize just to make this phone call comfortable for him. I told him that if he wanted any relationship going forward, it would have to look completely different from everything before it. He went quiet for a long time. Then I told him I wouldn't be signing the document. Not out of revenge, not cruelty, but because I'd spent 2 years learning that my peace wasn't a commodity. My signature, my time, my presence, none of it was available on demand to people who had treated my heart as disposable. The 4 words I sent to his lawyer were simple and final. I will not sign. His retirement plan collapsed within the month. I didn't celebrate it, and I didn't mourn it either. What I held on to instead was something quieter and much stronger. The understanding that protecting yourself isn't the same as being cruel. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop being available to people who only remember you exist the moment they need something.